Welcome to the Fully Mindful, where we explore what it means to live with intention, creativity, authenticity, and connection. I'm your host, Melissa Chareau, mindfulness and breathwork facilitator, neurodivergent lawyer and coach, and fellow human navigating this wild and beautiful ride we call life. On this podcast, we dive deep with interviews featuring inspiring guests, share solo mini episodes packed with guided mindfulness practices to help you center and thrive, and mix things up with tangents and sidebars, where my friend and fellow podcaster Debbie Harrell from the New World Normal joins me for some real, random, and meaningful conversations. So if you're ready to pause, reflect, and expand, you're in the right place. Let's get fully mindful. Well, hello, everybody. This is Melissa Chareau with the Fully Mindful, and I'm here with Dr. Michael Amster, who I'm absolutely delighted to have on the Fully Mindful podcast. He is a physician and faculty member at Touro School of Medicine. He graduated from University of California, Irvine School of Medicine, and completed his pain management fellowship at the University of Iowa. He's also been a student of meditation for something like more than 30 years, as well as a certified yoga teacher and a meditation teacher at one of my favorite places on the planet, Spirit Rock Meditation Center. He's also taught all kinds of things like spine health, yoga classes, and founded a Buddhist Sangha interfaith meditation group. Where we're at today, though, is he's published this amazing book along with his co-author, Jake Eagle, and that book is called The Power of Awe. And I think folks are going to find this incredibly, no pun intended, or maybe the pun is intended, awesome. This conversation is hugely important. This changes the groundwork for most of us in meditation and mindfulness practices. And if you've never meditated a day in your life, this is going to provide you a profound, new, very easy way to transform your life. So thank you so much, Dr. Amster, for being here today. Welcome.
Thank you, Melissa. It's really an honor to be here. And I'm a real big fan of your work, and I just love your mission and what you're doing out there in the world. And it's a pleasure to meet your community of listeners. Thank you for welcoming me here today for what will hopefully be a really awesome conversation and even a practical experience of people experiencing moments of awe today.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait. So with that, let's get started. You've written this book called The Power of Awe. Tell us exactly what awe is.
Yeah, so awe is what we believe, based upon our research and other people's research, is perhaps the most powerful of all positive emotions. And when people think of a moment of awe, they probably think of, looking out at the Grand Canyon or being in Yosemite or watching a beautiful sunset, perhaps witnessing the birth of a child. It's one of those moments of life where we experience a sense of vastness, like a connection to something that's much greater than ourself. And what's really unique and special about our research and our book, The Power of Awe, is that we are teaching people to experience moments of awe in the ordinary. Mm-hmm. So instead of having to travel to one of these extraordinary places, you can be at home right now, or even listening perhaps in your car, and have a moment of awe. Maybe you're at a red light. You can actually use those 15 to 30 seconds while you're sitting there to access a moment of awe. And in that moment, change your level of consciousness and have a profound, mindful moment that maybe takes you to a transcendent place of awakening and pure presence. So what's beautiful about this work is that it's really taking people back to sort of an original state of wonder and curiosity of the world. If you think of like a young child or a baby, they're so curious and they're bright-eyed and they're open to all these new beautiful experiences, and they're constantly in awe and wonder of the world around them. And sadly, as we go through our lives and we're conditioned and we get attached to our technological devices, we start to shut down and not to experience these moments of awe anymore. And what our work is to do is all about reconnecting people to what is most sacred and special and valued in their life.
Yeah, and what I love about this work, and we'll invite you to talk a little bit about it more, is how it really doesn't take a whole lot of effort. In fact, the idea is that it doesn't take effort and it doesn't take a whole lot of time. And so, can you talk a little bit about the lack of effort and the lack of huge time commitment for moments of awe?
Yeah. So actually, this conversation around effort and mindfulness is the reason and why this we came up with this methodology and did our research. So, as you mentioned in the introduction, I'm a mindfulness teacher and have led hundreds of patients in a community of interfaith mindfulness Buddhist practitioners for many years. And my co-author Jake is also a mindfulness teacher and a psychotherapist. And we both were experiencing in our teaching that people were having a really hard time finding 5 to 10 minutes a day to practice. It was whether didn't have the time, but it was also a lot of effort for them. And so I flew out to Hawaii where Jake lives, and with our goal of finding that ideal 15 to 30-second, what we call micro dosing mindfulness moment, where you could have a micro moment of mindfulness. And it was while I was in Hawaii, where when we think of Hawaii, it's always extraordinary awe, right? You think of the big rainbows and the ocean and the colors of the forest and the food. It was actually in a very ordinary moment where I had this epiphany where I was making pancakes at the home for Jake and Hannah one breakfast morning. And I had never poured pancake batter and just sat there and watched it turn from a liquid to a solid. I think like most people, when we pour pancake batter, we're off multitasking, making sausage, making orange juice, coffee, whatever, making breakfast, lunch for the kids or something. We're just always busy doing multiple things at the same time. And I sat there and watched the pancakes turn from a liquid to a solid. And I had this incredible, transcendent, present moment of awe, just witnessing this very ordinary experience of pancakes cooking. And so from that, we designed what we call the awe method. And we use the word awe, AWE, as the 3-step process of experiencing these profound moments of presence and awareness. When what's beautiful about it, as we touched on, is that it is effortless. And in fact, from our research and hearing testimonials from many hundreds of people that are practicing the awe method, is that if you use force or you try hard, which often people do with traditional mindfulness practices, is it takes a lot of effort to focus your mind on your breath for 5 to 10, 20 minutes. It's like really challenging to focus your mind and just get the monkey mind to slow down or to stop. So what's beautiful about this practice is, number one, it's effortless, and it can be done anytime, any place, anywhere. You don't have to be at home in a quiet room on a mat sitting with your legs crossed. You can be at a red light. You can be at checking out at the grocery store. You can be at the TSA line at the airport and have a moment of awe. And the other really incredible thing about this is that you get a reward instantaneously. And I know I've heard from so many meditation mindfulness students over the years that, one, the practice takes a lot of effort. It's hard. And often you feel yucky at the end because you feel like you didn't do good enough. And you maybe, you always want to be a better practitioner, a better student of mindfulness or meditation. And what's beautiful about this work is you get a reward instantaneously. You feel good after you have a moment of awe. So yeah, that's a little bit about how this came to be and why it's effortless and the powerful nature of this brief practice.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, and we'll get into what the actual practice is in a little bit more. But as somebody who has struggled with my own mindfulness practice, which I've done for 25, 30 years too, and actually we have this funny connection that I didn't get to tell you about, but I used to go to Monday night Dharma talks with Jack at Spirit Rock Meditation Center. I used to live in Marin County, and that was where I first experienced mindfulness. But I had this sense, especially as somebody who has ADHD, that I wasn't doing it right, or, I was never going to steady my mind. I certainly was never going to do like a week-long retreat. Like, how could I be silent for, a week? I didn't think it was possible. And I love that this practice is so accessible. In fact, when I first got the book, I decided to give it a try. And I'm a bit skeptical. I'm a lawyer by trade, even though I do mindfulness. I thought, oh, really? Could something really like this small, really 15 seconds, 30 seconds changed the way that I look at things. And I was really shocked. I was walking, I mean, I was in a place that is very beautiful. I was in the Columbia Gorge here in Oregon, and it was a gorgeous day. And I did, in fact, have a moment of awe. It was this incredible moment where I was just looking at a cloud. There was a cloud in the sky, and I just let myself be very present for that cloud and just looked at that cloud as if I were a child looking at a cloud. And suddenly the cloud looked like a white dragon. And I thought, well, that's amazing. This white dragon would be and then I realized it was sort of chasing something through the sky. And it was just this most beautiful moment. And then I just let myself be with it. And I mean, I kid you not, it was like an incredibly transformative experience. And it was 30, maybe 40 seconds. I don't know, something like that. So for the listeners, I'm just telling you that your host, Melissa, has actually tried this practice. And I think where the rubber really meets the road is when you practice it regularly. And I think you talk about that in the book. So 2 things I'd like to ask you about. Number 1, what are the steps of awe? And number 2, how is practicing it a couple of times a day transformative that you've seen?
Sure. So let's go through the practice and then I'll answer the second part of your question. So we use the word awe, AWE, and we break it into a 3-step process. And so I am mindful that probably most of your listeners right now are driving their car. So I will talk about the practice and kind of lead you through the practice, but I don't want to give someone such an intense awe experience that they might get in an accident. So just keep driving and pay attention to the road. And also in our book, we have 30 extended awe practices in the book. So what I'm going to tell you right now is really just the brief bare bones of it, but that there's so much more to be learned and experienced that we talk about in the book. So the A stands for attention. And so what we're asking you to do is to bring your full undivided attention to something that you value, appreciate, or find amazing. So I'm talking to you right now, Melissa, and I see you on the screen, and I see this beautiful piece of art behind, and I don't know the story behind it, but it's really capturing my awareness of something that's beautiful in the space right now. And so I'm bringing my full undivided attention to that and just really absorbing the colors and the patterns. And then the W stands for wait. So we're allowing ourselves to just pause and be fully present with that object that we are, or the thought that we're bringing our full attention towards for that moment. And then the E stands for taking a deep, longer exhale out. So you take a breath in and then a longer exhale. And when we take a long exhale out, we are stimulating our vagus nerve, which is the part of the autonomic nervous system, which is the rest and restore state. And it changes a lot of our physiology of our heart and our interchemical workings of our body in a really profound healing way. And then the E also stands for expansion. So I'm letting that moment really, really fill me up and expand inside of me. Because, when you have those awe moments, you experience vastness. And so it's not really necessarily vastness outside of yourself, but really the vastness we're talking about is an internal vastness that we feel as though we are much bigger than our small egoic identity, but part of something much bigger, whether you want to call it God or universe or some level of, shared consciousness on this planet. That's what we're expanding into. And that's often when we get those chills and those kind of goosebumps that we experience in our body. So that's basically the awe method. And I noticed you, just like witnessing you on the camera, you appear to be much more relaxed and just very present right now. And I feel the same way after like having that moment of connecting with a piece of art in your room. And so we think of the awe method as training wheels and learning to build what we call your awe muscle. So in our research that we did with hundreds of patients, as well as healthcare professionals on the front lines treating COVID back in 2020, we did see what's really amazing, direct response of dosing. So the more times that you have these brief moments of awe throughout the day, the more benefit you get for your emotional and physical health. So the minimum based on our research is 3 times a day. So we're just asking you to do this 15 to 20, 30-second practice to do it 3 times a day. And from our research, we know that there's statistical significance with about a 35% reduction of depression, which is equal to taking a pharmaceutical for depression without any side effects, which is incredible. And we also saw about a 25% reduction of anxiety, decreases in loneliness, improvements with managing stress, overall well-being, decreases in chronic pain, and other chronic health symptoms. So the benefits of are just, they're full spectrum of our physical and emotional health. And it's a beautiful practice. It can be done anywhere. It's effortless, and it's also contagious. So what I mean by that is that when you share your awe with somebody else, if I share a moment of awe with my partner or a friend or my child, it often elicits awe in them. And so we have on our website actually what we call the moment of awe page. So you can post your moment of awe, whether a photograph or words, and it's out there to the world. And then people can read other people's moments of awe, which then inspire you to have awe. So what's beautiful about this practice is that it's a self-perpetuating healing practice that offers healing for everyone who touches it.
I find that so fascinating because when I experienced awe that first time that I consciously tried it, the first thing I wanted to do was share it with somebody else. Mm-hmm. And so there was that compulsion of like, wait, I need to share this with somebody. Like, that was amazing. That was so amazing. I need to share this experience. And so I love that you have that people can share it, of course, with their family and their friends, but they can also share it in this community on your website. And that in turn compels other people to want to share their awe, and that makes you feel awe. And it's just this beautiful cycle there. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible when you share your awe with somebody else, and then how that just perpetuates more awe in the world. And the reason why this works this way is that awe, when we look at it from a research perspective, we call it a pro-social emotion. So what that means in terms of the psychological, sociological research perspective is that when you have moments of awe, it makes you a kinder person. It makes you a more generous person. They've done research where they've shown that when you have moments of awe, that you're more generous to strangers. So you'll probably give bigger tips and be more likely to be nice to, strangers, let people ahead of you in a line, be more mindful and thoughtful about others' welfare. It also opens up your mind to being more open politically. There's direct research that shows that it improves our, we know it improves both our physical and mental health, but it impacts our society in very positive ways. And I mean, that's what really excites us about this work. There's the personal level of improvement of health physically and emotionally and spiritually, but on a global level, we think that this work could really positively impact some of these larger issues we're dealing with right now, with climate change and the political strife that is dividing people up because they're so attached and fixated to their beliefs, to the point of, being willing to kill people just because they look at things differently.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everybody, this is Melissa with the Fully Mindful. It's the new year, and I bet you're feeling the need to unlock your full potential and embrace empowerment, or maybe something completely different. Well, I'm excited to offer a new program with one-on-one breathwork and coaching sessions. We'll embark on a truly transformative journey of self-discovery, combining conscious, connected breathwork and embodiment coaching, and more. So contact me, Melissa, at the Fully Mindful, for your transformative session today. Right, there's this incredible polarization, and that is really, I hope that there is a way to get awe out there into the world a little bit more, because if it can impact polarization and decrease that and make people kinder and gentler and more generous with one another, it seems like something we absolutely have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting. I just want to see kind of highlight the difference here between awe and mindfulness, as well as the similarities. I mean, obviously, I think the first time I read it, I was like, oh, this is kind of like the mindful eating practice where you take the raisin, and you really are present for the raisin. But it also struck me as somewhat different because in mindful eating practices like the raisin exercise, I do feel like there's still effort there. And what I really love about the awe practice is this lack of effort and lack of, at least for me, feeling like I have to do it the quote unquote right way. I'm just present for the experience and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. I don't have to have an attachment to, I think you mentioned this already. People sometimes feel at the end of a mindfulness practice, oh, did I do it right? Maybe I should be better. I had too many thoughts. I'm not cut out for this. And it just seems like anyone can do this awe practice. Is that right?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, yes, anyone can do this practice. And we know from our research that people that have traditionally failed at the more traditional regular mindfulness practices that can't focus for 5 to 10 minutes, they do find this easy to do and they're able to do it successful. Well, I don't even want to use the word success, but they're able to have a moment of awe because a moment of awe is so unique and individualized. And I think what you're talking about here is a really important part I want to bring up is that, and I know you can relate to this because you and I both studied at Spirit Rock, but for those of us that have been aspiring mindfulness students and even teachers, we think of like the ultimate goal of our practices is to develop enough focus, concentration, and peace of mind so we can enter a state of nirvana, that transcendent state where our thoughts stop, time begins to feel like it stands still. We're fully present, open, our egoic identity melts away, and we're sort of just connected to the oneness of everything. And what I believe is that that state of nirvana is really that state of awe, of that pure presence that you're talking about, a presence of spaciousness. And this is really, there's a whole model behind and a theory behind the design of the awe method. And we go into a lot of detail about this in the book and dedicate a part of the book to this. And this work is the life's work of my co-author and friend, Jake Eagles, who's been a lifelong student and teacher of spirituality and consciousness development. And I won't go into a lot of the details about it right now, but basically he teaches and has designed a 3 levels of consciousness model. And what awe does is it takes us to that highest level of consciousness, which he calls spacious consciousness, where that is that state of nirvana, where time slows down or stands still. The mind is no longer racing. We're fully present, where it colors, sensations, everything expands. We feel like connection of vastness to the oneness of all life on this planet. And when we have these brief moments, even if they just last for 5 to 10 seconds, like you did while running the other day on the Columbia River, it sets the tone of the rest of our life throughout the day when we're living in the ordinary, what he calls safety consciousness, when we're at work or we're preparing food or we're shopping or we're taking care of our aging parents or raising our children or whatever it is that we normally fill our time with. It changes the conversation, the colors of tone of everything in our lives when we have these brief moments of awe, because we don't get to the state of nirvana or that transcendent state and stay there. As you know from Buddhism, everything is emotion, everything is temporary. Mm-hmm. So we visit the state of nirvana, we visit the state of spacious consciousness, we get to taste it, but then we pop back into the everyday, what we call safety consciousness. And what's beautiful about this practice is you don't want to attach. It's not a game about trying to get the most number of awe moments throughout the day. It's like you visit the state, you experience it. There's a sense of bliss and pure awareness and presence and spaciousness. And then you just kind of go back into whatever else you were doing. For example, I walk my dog to a park that's about 5 minutes from my house a few times a day. And before we did a recording, I went on a walk with her. And Every time I do the walk, I use it. I call them my awe walks. I use it as a time to experience moments of awe. And even though I've done this walk probably thousands and thousands of times, every time I do it, it's different and unique. And I find something new to be in awe of that I've never appreciated before. Because awe is infinite. There's no shortage of awe to be had in the world. And I think most people would have this walk and they would be, maybe on their phones, or they're in the monkey mind where it's racing and they're not even present that they just had the walk. They do the whole walk and they come home and they never even really even took the walk. Their body did, but their mind did not. And what's beautiful about this practice is that it's portable. It goes wherever you go. And it makes those experiences of the ordinary just so much more rich and powerful.
I love that. Of course, from Spirit Rock, there's Jack Cornfield. And I always love the title and the book itself, but After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. And I think that's what you're talking about, is like, we can have this experience, we can visit this nirvana by experiencing awe. And then we go back, and yes, there might be the laundry. We're householders, right? We have things that we've got to do in regular life. But what you're saying is that the experiences of awe will alter how we experience those everyday householder experiences too.
Exactly. Right. So then you're living the everyday life that you are, and with a heightened level of awareness and consciousness, and bringing the flavors that awe brings into your life. It arrives everywhere you go, which is just incredible. And it's just so easy. And we talk about in our book, building the awe muscle. Mm-hmm. And in our research, it took 21 days for people practicing 3 times a day to build a consistent awe muscle, so that the ideal is that you start to have spontaneous moments of awe where it truly is effortless, and then awe in a sense bubbles up. So you will, something will just capture your eye and you'll be like, wow, I just had an awe moment without any effort. And the awe will just spontaneously bubble up all throughout your day, which is profound. One thing I did want to share, and I think it's important to bring up, because I notice for a lot of people that are just starting to build their awe muscle, they'll question, did I really just have a moment of awe? Like, I didn't get the full body tingles. And we talk about in our book that awe happens on a spectrum. So most of the time for me, my awe is pretty subtle. It's just like a subtle maybe tingle or a feel that I feel different, or a sense of colors being brighter, or I just feel very present. Sometimes you experience what we call like a meta state, where you become the observer of the observed, like a level stepped back of awareness. And then it's the spectrum goes all the way up to what we call an orgasm, right? Where your whole body may tingle or chill, you get chills all over. You may start to cry because you're so emotional from that moment of awe. And what's important, again, is not to judge yourself on your practice, and to not be forceful, just to allow these moments to appear. And there's no right and wrong. It's just everyone has their own unique flavors of awe.
I love that. And I do think it's really important to highlight that, we're all going to have different experiences all at different times. And what we might experience even in the morning might be different than what we experience in the afternoon. And, the evidence is in. You've done the research, which I want to talk a little bit more about that research that was done preliminarily. I think it was during the pandemic. So it was 2020, the pandemic. Start doing this research with people in the medical field as well as people not in the medical field. And you found all this incredible stuff that you've already talked about, this improvement of anxiety, depression. And I guess I wanted to highlight that, because if there was ever a time to do that kind of study and really test the power of awe, that was then.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that research was, the whole experience of designing that study, actually there were 2 studies, and implementing it was truly an awe moment in and of itself. So right before the pandemic, my colleague and I, Jake, had both done our own pilot studies where we took about a dozen of our own patients through the awe method and taught a 21-day course. And we saw some incredible outcomes. I met up with Dacher Keltner, who's the founder of the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. And he's really I call him the granddaddy of awe research. He wrote the first paper that started to explore awe as a scientific emotion back in 2003. And so through his lab, when the pandemic struck, we reached out to him and said, hey, we really want to do something to make this, to help people that are struggling right now with so much depression, loneliness, anxiety. So very quickly, in a matter of less than 2 months, we designed the study, we got the approval from the research board, and we had recruited 300 primary care patients and also 200 doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals on the front lines that were, knee deep in the stress and the throes of the horrors of the pandemic. And at that time, also when the study launched in 2020 in June, we also were having the race riots that were happening and the protests that were going on as well. So it was a really dark time for all of us, with rates of depression skyrocketing and burnout for healthcare professionals. And so that's at the stage. And in the 21-day program, like I shared earlier, we saw these profound statistical significance that support the evidence that this practice changes people's health physically and emotionally in very profound ways in just 21 days of, developing this mindful practice of experiencing moments of awe in the ordinary. And what's exciting for us is we're still exploring more research on this area. It feels like we're just starting. We have another study that we're launching at the very end of February at UC Davis with UC San Francisco, looking at long COVID patients that are suffering from all the brain fog and the depression and low energy and fatigue, all from long COVID syndrome, which is affecting 23 million Americans. And we don't even know what to do about it. Like, we don't really have cures for it yet. But we believe that understanding how the awe method works in the brain and in the body, that it should help people that are suffering from long COVID. And then we're really excited about even further research of looking at patients that have had cardiac events and how the awe method will help with cardiac rehab, because we know that awe is the only positive emotion that decreases inflammatory cytokines in the body. So, that is incredible, that the emotion of awe, it's not, gratitude or generosity or compassion, love. It's the emotion of awe that statistically lowers these inflammatory intracellular communicators that result in chronic heart disease, diabetes, cancers. Pretty much most chronic illnesses are a result of inflammation in the body. Even depression is considered a neuro-inflammatory condition. And so awe lowers inflammation, significantly in our bodies and in our brains. And so the research that we're going to be doing is really exciting, like exploring more into how awe is really the most powerful of all emotions.
Gosh, I'd love to, I just read this really great book and listened to a couple of podcasts with Dr. Chris Palmer. If you're familiar with his work, he wrote Brain Energy, and it's all about nutrition and doing other steps to treat mental illness, because he calls it a metabolic disorder of the brain. So it's really interesting because it's about inflammation. So it'd be really interesting to see what happens with those studies and what happens with people who have mental disorders who practice awe. And we talked a little bit about this before we hopped on the recording today. I had wondered how, if there had been any research, and it doesn't sound like there has been yet, with the big word being yet, on how this might affect persons with ADHD or, other neurodivergent people. So can you speak a little bit about what you're thinking and hoping will occur with these populations?
Yeah. So in our research, we know from people's anecdotal stories that have struggled with other traditional mindfulness techniques that the awe method was very accessible and easy for them to do. People that have ADHD or ADD. And I shared with you a little bit of an anecdotal story of my own father who has adult ADHD and has shared with me how in any moment of time, he can feel like he's experiencing 100 different thoughts happening. And it's cute. Like when I was, when I was a lot younger, my mom and I would attend Thich Nhat Hanh retreats
Mm.
when he was still alive, and we would go together. And my dad would come as a visitor for a day. He used to teach them in San Diego, where I grew up, and I would watch my dad struggle trying to focus his mind. And it's great because my parents we were all just together recently around the holidays, and my dad read the book, and he was explained like, yeah, I can actually do this. Like, this is a mindfulness practice that I can actually make work for me. And he was having these kind of profound moments of awe and getting really excited. He was like a little child
I love
having
it.
all moments in ways that he's never had before, because normally his mind is so racing and unable to focus.
But
Yeah.
then there's the hyper focus that can really probably help people with ADD if they get to that point. If they're really looking at something really fascinating, interesting, it'd be interesting to see if they experience, on the spectrum of awe, like a really high amount of awe. I could see that. I mean, I'm just positing here, just sort of extrapolating from that. One,
Yeah. It's a
yeah, I
great,
mean,
this is like, all this stuff is so interesting. I
yeah,
have what I call epiphanies
love
all
that.
the time as I teach about awe and I hear people's stories, and one thing that I'm playing with and experiencing for myself is I actually think that ordinary moments of awe are actually easier for our brains to connect with than these extraordinary moments. Like when you're on the edge of the Grand Canyon, I went rafting down the Grand Canyon this last summer for 18 days. And I mean, there's just so much stimuli in that
Yeah.
vastness and the grandness of the Grand Canyon. It's almost hard to process and to really even appreciate because there's just so much data input. But what I love about this practice of having on the ordinary is I can look at a leaf on a tree and have a really profound moment of awe and really able to take in that little leaf and
Mhm.
to really fully make that part of my sense of self in those moments. That to me, that's like just leads more power to our own ability to choose,
Mm.
and to experience on a daily basis. We start our book with a quote from Einstein that I think is really powerful. And it's the idea that he says there are two ways to live. You can live as if nothing is a miracle, or you can live as if everything is a miracle. And what this practice does is it opens our eyes to have childlike wonder and amazement in the ordinary moments of our lives when we're normally asleep and unconscious. It brings back that choice and that power to experience the richness and the beauty of every moment. Every moment it can be, you can behold awe. It's just it's I really get speechless when I start to pontificate on these grander ideas of how important awe is for our emotional, physical, and spiritual health.
Yeah, one of the things that I was just thinking of, since some of the listeners are like me and have had substance use disorder in their lives, whether it's with themselves or with family members. And one of the things that struck me in reading the book was how awe increases connection and co regulation and coherence. And one of the things that people talk about who study substance use disorder talk about is that people who experience that have a lack of connection. They feel alone, different, apart from, etc. And so I'm wondering how this experience of awe might impact people who have substance use disorder or are in recovery, because it does increase the connection. I talked about my experience. I felt awe, and all I wanted to do was share it with someone. And so there's this connection, and the neuroscience seems to back that up. Is that right? That it
Yeah,
increases feelings of connection.
exactly. The awe experiences, we know in the brain, it lowers the activity of the default mode network, which is that self-reflective part of the brain, which is where our monkey mind is, and that kind of egoic center of ourselves. And what's beautiful is that in these moments of awe, our sense of egoic self diminishes significantly, and we do feel connected to that vastness of something beyond our small self, of whether you want to call it God or the
Mhm.
universe, some level of consciousness that's bigger. And in our research, we know that people that were really struggling, they were sheltering in place, they were alone, they had nowhere else, they couldn't connect with people. It was before vaccine, and the virus was much more deadly and virulent then. And we saw a significant decrease in loneliness in a practice that people did by themselves. I mean, it's really incredible, right? If you think about like how attuning our minds to these moments of awe can change our full experience of our identity of ourselves and make us feel connected to the vastness of all life on this planet. I just like am in deep respect and bow to the emotion of awe and how we're wired as humans to have these moments. And I think it's part of our wiring of how we're meant to be on this planet, is to have these moments of awe. And sadly, in our current state in our world or culture, Americans are the least likely to have moments of awe in a week, less than one a day. Sorry, one a week of a moment of awe. So we live in an awe-starved culture where we need awe more than ever to connect us back to what is most vital and important in our lives. Our education system needs to bring back awe to engage students and to make learning fun and curious and wondrous again. We're talking to one of the school districts in the Bay Area about bringing an awe-based curriculum and helping teachers reconnect with awe in the classroom.
I think that would be amazing. I think another place that could really use it are, psychiatric institutions, prisons, and all sorts of populations which are probably starved of awe. Although, fascinatingly, I found in your book that people who had higher income were less likely to experience awe than people with lower income, which was really interesting to me.
Yeah, there's research that's been done by my colleagues that did demonstrate that, people's propensity to experience awe is much higher in those from a lower socioeconomic class. And really the reason it comes down to is that higher socioeconomic class individuals are much more self-centric and self-absorbed. And so for them, it's harder for them to experience awe. Their personalities are just not as wired for moments of awe, and which is really interesting because I've had questions when I've talked at different healthcare systems. Can our marginalized communities experience this? Is this emotion only a emotion of luxurious people who have the ability to and the comfort to like dabble in awe? And awe is not, a privileged emotion. It's an emotion that is important for everyone's health and well-being. And I think it's wonderful to know that the natural ability for people to connect with awe, comes actually easier for those in lower socioeconomic classes.
Yeah, and I think you talked about this in the book too, where people can experience both awe and another emotion, whether that be a negative emotion or another emotion altogether at the same time, which is really unusual, right? That you could be both, you could experience, I don't know even what emotion, maybe sadness, but also awe at the same time. And I found that fascinating. Like I think you gave the example of you can't be both unhappy and happy at the same time, but you could be unhappy but also experience awe. And I guess I think about that in terms of some of these other populations, and I was thinking of Ukraine is what popped into my mind, where people are experiencing horrible conditions, but might still be able to experience a moment of awe, which would be of immense comfort and connection for them.
Yeah, we start one of our chapters of the book, which the chapter is about finding awe in times of strife. And we tell the story of Viktor Frankl, who is a Holocaust survivor, psychiatrist who survived, and he wrote probably one of the most important books of the last century, Man's Search for Meaning. And he shares a story about there being like a death march after people were evacuated out of Auschwitz to another camp, and how him and his prison mates saw the hills of the Bavarian mountains and the colors, and just were really in awe of that and how important awe was for him. Yeah, I wanted to read a little bit from our book, maybe just one paragraph.
Yes, please.
But we say awe is a special emotion and that it can reconnect us with what is most precious, even during the worst of times. It has the unique ability to be present with other emotions, including as Frankl and his prison mates experienced hopelessness. When we're unhappy, for example, we may not be able to access happiness at the same time. And when we're anxious, we may not be able to relax at the same time. But whether we feel unhappy or happy, anxious or relaxed, we can also feel awe. That we have the capacity to be in awe when experiencing difficult emotions gives us a great deal of influence over our suffering.
Gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's so profound. I think, as a mindfulness teacher and working as a chronic pain specialist with so many thousands of patients over my career, and that even if you're in the darkest place of your life, maybe you've gone through a divorce, lost a child, have a medical diagnosis of something that's terminal or whatever, you can still connect to awe. And the benefits are there for your health and well-being when you do so. We had patients that were in our studies that were actually terminal. One of our participants was dying of a blood cancer and was hospitalized at Stanford while in the study. And, he shared how much he created what he called a wall of awe in his hospital room. He was isolated because of his immunodeficiency, and he put pictures up of people and quotes and things that were most precious to him, and they inspired him, during his sort of end of life journey. Yeah, awe is unique of all emotions because you can't force yourself to be happy when you're sad and you're going through a hard time or you're depressed, but you can still access a moment of awe even in the darkest times of our lives.
Wow. That seems like a good place to round this out. That was just moving to me. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, where can people find this beautiful body of work and how to connect and find out more about the power of awe that they can use in their own lives?
Yeah. So we have our book out. It's called The Power of Awe, that is published by Hachette. It's available also as an audiobook. And we have our website, thepowerofawe.com. And on our website, we have a lot of resources, including the Moment of Awe page that I think we had talked about earlier, where people can post or look at other people's moments of awe. We also are doing some online courses and we're teaching people the awe curriculum and running them through the 21-day awe program, as well as doing specialized courses for people with chronic pain or dealing with burnout, and applying the awe method. But I think, it's sort of a take-home point as we wrap up today. We've talked a lot about how awe impacts ourselves personally and improving our own physical and mental, spiritual health. But we think of awe as much more than that. It's not just a self-help technique. And I'd like to just read a little bit more for the book, kind of as a closure from our epilogue. The implications of awe go well beyond personal transformation. Awe touches everything, and perhaps most telling is the effect it has on others. We're wired to attune to others' behaviors and moods. Our nervous system senses the emotions of those around us. Just as being the recipient of a warm smile can lighten our mood, when we're in awe, those around us feel it too. Awe is contagious, and so practicing awe is one not so small way we can contribute to the world. In this book, we've covered how the awe method is grounded in science and that a whole body of science supports that awe changes lives. So we have a big, simple crash ending to the power behind the simple practice of the awe method. If practiced frequently enough by enough people, a critical mass as it were, everyone would experience a significant heightened shift in consciousness. Awe changes us, and when we share our awe, we change the world. How can we be in awe of someone and physically or emotionally harm them? How can we be in awe of the natural world and destroy it? How can we be in awe of life itself and not live as if every day were a miracle? In awe, the tone of every conversation, from the personal to the political, shifts from having an agenda to being open and curious. Our conversations impact how we raise our kids, how we help our aging parents, how we treat our spouse, how we participate in community, how we mentor or supervise people, how we govern a city, and how we lead a nation. Awe awaits you and surrounds you in the ordinary moments of your life, like the view of the stars that fill the night sky. Awe is free and available. All you need to do is pay attention to what you value, appreciate, and find amazing. Wait, and then exhale and expand into the unlimited timelessness of awe.
Love it. And I want to say hi to your dog who we heard, who made a cameo.
Yeah, Pele, my dog. She's named after the Hawaiian goddess of fire. She had a little awe moment there.
She did. And it was perfectly timed. And that was so beautiful. And I really am thankful of our time here together. I'm actually think I had many moments of awe during our talk today. And I really appreciate it. And I cannot wait to see where this work takes you and where this work takes us in the world. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the work you're doing in the world as well, Melissa. And I just so enjoyed this time together and hearing about our shared experiences at Spirit Rock. And it's really an honor to meet you and to be on this journey of awakening and transcendence together and really doing good work to make the world a much better place for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really honored.
Hey, everybody, if you like this conversation and are looking to align your work and life with your purpose or uncover your purpose in the first place, work with me. I coach people ready to uncover and appreciate their worth, make an impact, and find meaning and purpose in the work they do, whether that's personal or professional work. Get your mind right and make your plan for impact and coach with me. Connect with me for 15 or 20 at the Calendly link in the show notes below and talk about coaching with me. Hey everybody, it's Melissa, and I'm wondering if you all can relate. Have you ever caught yourself procrastinating or maybe doubting your abilities, or maybe you have a black belt inner critic like I do or have had that wants to sabotage your every move with judgment and perfectionism expectations? It might keep you stuck, it might keep you anxious and away from your full potential. The Positive Intelligence Program, PQ, is a powerful 6-week journey designed to help you quiet those saboteurs, embrace positivity, and find flow in your life. Through daily practices and weekly focuses, we'll work together to build your mental fitness. The PQ app will guide you every step of the way and support you, and you'll be supported either by myself in a one-on-one or in a small group of like-minded individuals where you can share insights and progress. So reach out, contact me at info@thefullymindful.com to find out how we can work together one-on-one or in a small group today.